What's up, guys? Welcome to The Right Side. Today, I want to talk about the birth rate. America is still a relatively young country. We aren't even 250 years old yet. Like all countries, we are only as strong as the next generation our population produces. Families are funny, especially in how we grow and mature to create them. Ask any high schooler and they are likely to say that they aren't interested in having kids until they get older and radically change. Now, I know that such a statement will summon some to cite the natural law of some but not all, but it doesn't matter, and I don't care. Some discussions are more important than how they may make people feel. That being said, it's no secret that the US is experiencing a falling birth rate. But it's not just falling, it's already fallen. Below replacement. Such a trend might, but at this point likely will, be as catastrophic to civilization as a war. What makes a low birth rate perhaps even worse is that it's a slow, agonizing death rather than a fast, explosive war. A low birth rate starves social services and shrinks the economy. However, a low birth rate isn't a problem that surprises you. It's not a spontaneous civilizational crisis like a war is. It's a slow-moving trend that becomes exponentially harder to correct the longer you wait to address it. Such a crisis and trend is created through society-sized shifts in attitudes, behaviors, and habits. While the magnitude of the birth rate crisis is unfortunately severe, there is hope that that severity moves people to consider hard truths about the cause, which we have to understand if we want to reverse this trend in the future. To give some background to this discussion, I want to run through some figures that should be troubling to just about everyone. The current US birth rate is roughly 1.62 births per woman. Keep in mind that the replacement rate is anything over 2. The birth rate hasn't been above replacement since the financial crisis of 2008. The last time our birth rate was this low was in the mid to late 70s, following a plummeting in the birth rate over the previous decade. The scary part is that the fall that we are living through right now doesn't come from a place of an already high birth rate. You could argue that the fall from the boomers to Gen X is more severe, and numerically, I'd even agree. However, falling from a place of great surplus to dipping below replacement, while admittedly a large drop, is going to hurt. But as long as you don't continue to fall, as Gen X didn't, the burn won't be as short-term and could be kicked down the road. What's different about our current situation is that our peak was barely over replacement, and we were falling from there. Our decline didn't start at 3 or 3.5 births. It started just as we got our heads above water. Perhaps the most troubling aspect of our current decline that separates us from past declines is the health of the family unit. Feminism in the 70s and 80s isn't the feminism of today. While the doctrinal teaching was the same, that women are no different than men in their capabilities, wants, needs, and roles in society because, as Gloria Steinem put it, a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. The difference is the societal acceptance of the push. The family unit and relations between the sexes were better in the 70s and 80s than they are today. I don't know who would argue against that. The environment and atmosphere surrounding gender roles in marriage weren't nearly as strained and tense as they are today. This heavily affects the likelihood of a society rebounding its birth rate, while coming off of a steep and sudden drop or a decades-long stagnation and decline. The reality is that recovering from the birth rate collapse of the mid-50s to mid-70s was far more culturally feasible than it is today. Marriage as an institution was stronger in those days, and it doesn't get better if generations become increasingly polarized as they are today. Data from polls and surveys suggest that women's stated desires regarding how many children they want to have has remained relatively stagnant over time. But that's given the question the benefit of the doubt, assuming the women are truthful. The data also suggests, however, that the most significant factors impacting fulfilled childbearing intentions are marital status and gender role attitudes. Considering once again the alarming political polarization of Gen Z among the sexes, this doesn't make for a good recipe. The left has systematically engineered society to be driven away from family or marriage, emphasizing the dangers of so-called toxic masculinity with a brush so broad it emasculates all of society. Not to mention the feminist push against so-called unrealistic standards and the promotion of body positivity, inflating the ego of women and instilling in them actual unrealistic physical and financial standards for men. This dynamic is the opposite of the yin and yang that society has had for generations. Even worse is that when we look for solutions, the left only preaches the need to double down. Professional and educational equity between men and women are really the drivers of the problem. And if only men would step further to the side for women, then everything would fall into place. Ignoring that women are already out-educating men and are still having fewer children than less educated women are. Marriage rates have been cratering since 1980, and nothing about progressive reforms targeting education and career advancement for women seems to be helping. Not to mention the normalization and pervasiveness of hookup culture, which dupes women by giving men their primal desires for free with no accountability on their part. Data suggests that religiosity positively influences the birth rate, but religiosity is also plummeting. All of these social and cultural factors positively influencing the birth rate are dividing men and women further and quickly vanishing before our eyes. And the only solutions we hear from the architects of modern society only add to the problems we are facing. All of this, the education gap, the fall of marriage, the loss of religion, all underscore why our current birth rate crisis is different from those in the past. However, what's not different What's not changed, or if it has only gotten worse, is how the liberal leftist perpetrators of modern society handled this obvious decline. Instead of acknowledging their movement's negative impact and push for irrational egalitarianism, they revert to their natural, primal defense mechanism of dodging reality and projecting. If you point out that women are out educating men, yet are having fewer babies instead of more, then you're obviously just sidetracking the discussion from the real problem of toxic male insecurity towards educated women. If you point out that women are destroying their prospects of future relationships by sleeping with every guy that they meet, then you're obviously just an insecure incel only dreaming of your own chance to objectify women as sex objects and dispose of them the next day. If you point out that we are growing worryingly less religious and having fewer babies because of it, then you're obviously just trying to turn women into baby-making factories that are chained to the kitchen, ignoring the fact that promiscuity renders women into nothing than sex dolls.
If men were as bad and misogynistic as you think, they would put us in cages and we'd be, baby farms.
You're a bit of a baby farm. Haven't you popped out 5 children?
Yeah,
You're
I'm
a baby
mother.
farm.
Would you like me to go wake up my children and get them down here too so you can tell them that they're like gross little
I don't think it's appropriate.
I mean, take your little snarky little insults and shove them up your ass because you are a useless heifer who has never done anything except gratify your own
great
desire.
woman.
So what are we left with? A societal and cultural environment and atmosphere designed to reject the very things that would reverse this trend. Luckily for society, the largest poll in the political ideation of the next generation was conducted last November and was frequently referred to as the presidential election. In this poll, Gen Z voted further to the right than any other election of the same age group. A demographic that typically votes heavily to the left was reduced to a mere 4-point margin. Trump won men 18 to 44 by 8 points and slashed the margin for women 18 to 44 by 7 points. While the numbers on paper don't seem very staggering, they clearly indicate a historical shift to the right for the youth vote. It shows that the next generation is less receptive to the same liberal decline in the country. They noticed the failures of the liberal architects of modern society and chose to reject them. This should be uplifting and seen as the glimmer of hope that it is. The cultural reform is possible and occurring, but it only matters if we act upon it before it's too late. The US, however, isn't alone in this predicament. The birth rate problem has spread worldwide, indicating the family unit is under assault on all fronts. North, South, Central America, Africa, the Middle East, Asia, and all corners of the globe see this crisis before their very eyes. The origins of this crisis vary among countries, with China seeing a catastrophic fall after the implementation of its one-child policy in response to manic overpopulation propaganda. China has since reversed track on these policies over the decades, but the damage has already been done to the Chinese culture and generational sizes, affecting their approach to foreign affairs to be much more dire and desperate. Other Asian countries like Japan and North Korea might somehow be in worse spots. The South Korean government is taking such dire steps to right the ship that they're offering tens of thousands of dollars in incentives for men and women to get married and start families. All of these countries are learning the hard way that reactive government policy may not be enough to reverse entire cultural attitudes. The 4B movement has been tearing through South Korea and Japan, further widening the attitude divide in the cultures to detrimental effect. A policy implemented by Turkey inspires my favorite policy proposal to tackle the problem. To foster married family growth, I want to abolish a federal income tax for married families, mother and fathers, with at least 4 children. I am open to amending this proposal to a 2-step plan, where families receive a 66 to 50% federal tax break for the 3rd child and have it completely abolished for the 4th. This policy is very fiscally sound, as it doesn't offer additional subsidies for which the government has to pay in addition to its agenda. This policy is a tax break, the best kind of tax credit or subsidy, as it doesn't spend more money, but merely forces government spending to be more streamlined, lean, and responsible. Giving this tax break to married families, regardless of income, reinvigorates the spirit of family across the economic spectrum, and gives young and poor families added breathing room in addition to current benefits. Some may call this policy impractical and radical. To that, I underscore the dire situation our country and culture are facing, a situation that demands radical action that both goes after reckless government spending while also placing a tremendous incentive for family creation and growth. Things right now aren't looking good, and the forecasts aren't optimistic. We need a cultural change that moves hand in hand with a pro-natalist government policy. A revived strength of family and birth rate boost will go a long way to rebuilding communities and churches while opening the economy up to explosive growth. The anti-human depopulation agenda mixed with the idiocy of feminism got us into this mess in the first place. Trying to fix the image of the family when nothing was broken, and radically attempting to curb bogus overpopulation to the point where the solution created more problems than the problem itself. Fixing the culture of family and marriage is bound to make certain people feel uncomfortable and judged. I don't care. Duty and obligation trump subjective feelings. We all have a duty and obligation to the next generation, even when it may seem that past generations didn't give you that same effort. In the end, the birth rate crisis isn't just a statistic. It's a reflection of our values, priorities, and the strength of our civilization. A nation that fails to replace itself is a nation in decline. And if we don't change course, America will suffer the same fate as other collapsing societies throughout history. The good news is that the tides are shifting. More people are waking up to the destructive consequences of feminism, the erosion of marriage, and the war in the family. But recognizing the problem isn't enough. We need action. We have to reject the nihilism that tells us that family is a burden, that children are an inconvenience, and that masculinity and femininity are outdated. We need cultural renewal, government policies deciding strong families, and, most importantly, a mindset shift. Strengthening families, embracing responsibility, and rejecting the anti-human, anti-family agenda is the only path forward. The future belongs to those who show up for it. If we want to save our country, we must build it, one strong family at a time. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, I'd appreciate it if you like button. If you'd like to support and help channel grow, become a member, subscribe, ring the bell to update with all my uploads. Finally, whether you agree or disagree, leave your thoughts in the comment section below. I look forward to engaging with you guys with special and thoughtful discussions. With that said, see you guys next video. See ya.